Welcome, fellow travelers. Tonight, we turn the page to a chapter often written in bold strokes, but we'll read it differently. Not in the clash of swords or the blare of horns, but in the quieter spaces in between. Before the glory, there were long roads. Before the legends, there were tired feet, cracked armor, and silent doubts whispered under starlight. This isn't the crusade as told in epic tales, but has lived, day by uncertain day, by those who marched far from home, unsure if they'd return. If you're listening from somewhere quiet, feel free to share your corner of the map and what kind of day you had. It's comforting to imagine distant lanterns glowing across the world. And if this story brings a little stillness to your evening, you're welcome to stay. There are more forgotten footsteps waiting in the dust. It begins in the dark. Before the sun has risen, before the birds begin their morning calls, before even the low fires of the cook tents are stirred back to life, the ground is cool and hard beneath your bedroll. A thin wool blanket shields you from the night air, but your legs are stiff. Your feet throb inside cracked leather boots, and your back aches from sleeping on uneven ground. You are a knight, a man of rank in theory. But here, beneath the cracked sky of the Levant, with dust in your nose and your skin caked in salt, there is little to distinguish you from the mass of others rousing themselves in the pre-dawn gloom. There is no breakfast. A crust of old bread, gnawed between yawns, serves as your morning fare. You chew it slowly, letting the dryness coat your tongue. The water you drink is warm, ladled from a barrel covered in flies. It smells faintly of metal and mildew, but you do not gag. You are used to worse. You do not pray before eating. That will come later. Prayer, like marching and digging, is part of your daily rhythm. Wood from a cross. Others hold nothing but a book, fingers stained with wax and oil. There will be no battle today. Most days are like this, days of waiting, of drills, of watching the horizon, of fixing broken buckles and cleaning rusted swords. You don't speak of it much, but this is not the war you imagined when you took the cross. You expected a swift journey, a dull smear of orange behind the dust. It will be hot again, hotter than your homeland ever was. You're already sweating beneath your armor, though the day has barely begun. You nod to a few other knights, faces drawn, shoulders slumped. They nod back. No one speaks much in the morning, not unless necessary. Your horse is tethered under the shade of a patched canvas lean-to. He's restless, irritated by flies, stomping at the dry ground. You stroke his neck, murmur a few soft words. He smells like straw and old leather. The saddle is warm, the hooves need scraping, but there's no time and no one to do it. After a short while, you assemble with others for morning prayers. A monk reads aloud from a psalter. His voice is hoarse, his Latin precise. You kneel, remove your gauntlets, press your calloused hands together. The words are familiar. You do not think deeply about them. You murmur them because it's what you do, because it fills the time, because it might offer protection, even now. The heat begins to rise. Your duties for the day are simple: training with weapons, repairing gear, rotating on watch, assisting with the supply wagons. You are expected to help fortify the outer boundary where wooden stakes are being erected. You do not protest. You join the others, hauling lumber, hammering spikes, tying rope with blistered hands. A nobleman once, a landholder, but here you are just another body.
The air grows thicker by midday. You strip your helmet and wipe your brow. You eat another hard crust, dipped in water and garlic. A strip of salted meat, if you're lucky. You think of home, not wistfully, not often. But it comes to you sometimes like a scent on the wind. The cool stone of your manor, the green hills, the weight of things that mattered once and don't matter here. For land, for penance, the reasons blur. A priest approaches with a relic, a small glass vial said to hold the blood of a saint. He offers it for veneration. You kneel, you kiss the glass, you try to feel something. You feel only the pressure of the dust in your nose. Evening falls. The shadows grow long. You remove your armor slowly, grateful for the weight lifted. The mail is damp. A crusader, a knight of the cross. But here, in the dirt, in the heat, in the waiting, you are something simpler. You are tired, and tomorrow it begins again. The days blur together. There are no clocks here, no hours measured by chimes, only the rising and falling of light, the crackling of fires, and the regular toll of prayer. Morning, midday, and evening, marked not by bells, but by the steady voice of a cleric reminding you to kneel, to confess, to prepare your soul. Real battle in weeks. That doesn't mean there's peace. There are raiding parties at night, cries from distant hills, sometimes the dull thud of hooves. You are always on edge. Your sword stays close but rarely drawn. When it is, it feels heavier than it used to, not from rust, but from knowing what follows. Notching is not hard, but it is long. You count clouds. You speak psalms under your breath, not out of devotion, but out of habit, a rhythm to keep the flies away. Below you, a priest walks slowly among the tents. He carries a small wooden cross and a warm book of prayers. He does not speak loudly. He knows most here do not want sermons, they want reassurance, that someone still sees them, that the war they joined still means something.
At dusk, a new group of recruits arrives. Young, thin, wide-eyed. You watch them stumble from their carts, blinking at the dust, their arms cradling bundles of gear. One of them wears polished mail. His surcoat is clean, his sword gleams. He walks too upright. He has not yet learned to slouch, to lower his head, to shrink himself under the weight of endless days. You do not envy him. You remember when you were like that, when you arrived full of fire, believing you would cut through the enemy with swift strokes and earn your reward in heaven. That was a long time ago. You still believe, you suppose, but not in the way you did. Faith now is quieter, less about glory, more about getting through the day. And in the fields, the sound of hooves on wet grass, the clink of a gate shutting gently in the night. You wonder how many of your companions think the same.
The morning is different today, not because the sun rises any gentler or because the bread is any softer, but because the horn sounds, a long, low note that echoes through the camp like a memory you are trying to forget. Marching orders, movement. You've known it was coming. Supplies have dwindled. Scouts returned days ago with word of a new position or perhaps a new skirmish. It's never entirely clear. What matters is that everything must be packed again. Every rope, every pot, every holy relic, every cracked barrel and splintered tool. The camp, once a slow-moving organism, lurches back into motion. You tighten the straps on your gear. Your back protests. The leather digs into your shoulder where a welt never healed. Your horse is restless. You soothe him with your voice, though your breath is short. The heat is already building. You gather your pack, your shield, your blade. It feels heavier than before. Or maybe you are just more tired. The column stretches for what feels like miles. Knights, footmen, pilgrims, oxen, priests, mules, one after another, arranged by necessity, not rank. The dust rises early, dry and choking. You wrap a cloth around your face. Your eyes still sting. The rhythm of your footsteps becomes your only measure of time. Step, step, step. You adjust your grip on your sword. Step, step. The road is uneven. Sometimes you travel across stones, sometimes across mud. You cross dry riverbeds and scrubland. The land changes slowly, then not at all. The sky is merciless, blue without relief. The sun punishes armor and exposed skin alike. You pass the time not by counting hours, but by measuring how long since your last swallow of water. There is little talk on the road. Voices are saved for commands or warnings. A broken wheel, a stumbling beast, a man who collapses in the dust and does not rise again. You do not stop. You do not look back. There is always someone watching from above, you're told. Someone keeping account of all these small sufferings. You hope it's true.
You pause for rest only briefly. A shared jug of water, a strip of dried meat. You sit beneath a low tree, if you're lucky. If not, you crouch in what shade your shield provides. The men beside you lean back with eyes closed, not sleeping, just trying to forget the hours ahead. A endless walk, others faint from thirst. You envy the footmen sometimes. They carry less, they expect less, but they also die first when danger comes. And danger is never far. A glint on a hilltop, a rider in the distance, a sudden gust of wind that feels like more than wind, lapsing onto rough bedding. You do not remove your armor completely. You keep the breastplate nearby, just in case. You eat with slow movements, your jaw tired from the day. The bread is harder than usual. Before you sleep, you kneel. Your knees crack. Your voice is low. You do not ask for much, only for safe passage, only for one more day. Because that's what this has become. Not a march to glory, but a march to endure. One day at a time, one foot in front of the other. And if the Lord hears you, if your sins are forgiven, if the relics protect you, then maybe, just maybe, you'll rise again tomorrow and keep walking. It is easy to imagine that war is about motion, about the charge, about the clash. But for the Crusaders at Antioch, war was something else entirely. It was not about speed, it was about stillness, about waiting, about the slow, grinding crawl of hunger through a man's bones. The siege was not a moment, it was a season, and then another. You arrive in the autumn of 1097. You have already marched across miles of foreign land. Your feet are raw. Your mail is dented in places you can no longer repair. But Antioch stands before you, massive and old, its walls built of stone and silence.
It is a city older than most languages you know, surrounded by a river and ringed with fortifications that stretch far into the hills. It does not open its gates. You are not alone. Thousands have come. Knights, foot soldiers, cooks, pilgrims, merchants, monks. A sea of tents stretches across the plain, pressed between the Orontes River and the city's mighty walls. You find your place among them, your unit assigned to a northern position. From here you can see a distant tower, one of many.
You watch men chew leather and call it a meal. You watch others vanish into the woods, never to return. You hear rumors of theft, of cannibalism in the worst weeks. You don't believe them, but then again, you believe many things now that you once would not. The priests still hold mass. They still walk the lines with relics and chants, but the voices are quieter now. The incense is thinner. A man you once saw lead a hymn now speaks only in whispers. He stares at his bowl for hours. Still, you wait, because you must, because the gates may open tomorrow, because God has not abandoned you, only tested you. That is what the bishops say. One morning, frost glistens on the stones near your tent. A man beside you coughs until he bleeds. You walk the camp looking for food, for news, for something. You return with nothing but a handful of walnuts and a cracked wooden cup. It is enough. The city never speaks. Its towers stand day after day, lit at night by torches, silent and ancient. You wonder what the defenders eat, whether they too are suffering, whether they pray as you do. You stop counting the days.
Time becomes a blur of footsteps, of bowed heads and gritted teeth. You rise each morning not with expectation, but obligation. You put one hand in front of the other, because to stop would be to slip beneath the surface of something darker. The camp becomes quieter. The songs stop. Even the shouting fades. You still hear the barking of dogs inside the city, though, clear, sharp, maddening. The sound of life beyond your reach. The sound of food you do not have. Sometimes the wind carries the scent of meat cooking from within the walls, and it twists your stomach into knots. You try not to look at the men who grow too thin, at those who tie strips of cloth around their waists to feel less hollow. You try not to think of the knights who once wore bright surcoats and now sit in silence, chewing nothing. You help bury one of them after the snow begins to fall. He was not your friend, but you carried his feet. He had a name. You forget it. Blades that have long sat untouched. You feel it too, a flicker of something. Hope? Desperation? The two are no longer distinct. Still the city holds. And then one day, without warning, the gates open. Not to surrender, not to greet, but to run. A traitor, perhaps? A bribe? A moment of confusion? All you know is that you and your companions poured into Antioch with a hunger greater than any feast. You don't remember every detail. You remember the echo of your boots on stone, the cries, the clash, the sudden weightlessness of movement after so many weeks of stillness. Antioch falls, but the story does not end, because now you are trapped inside the city, behind the very walls you could not breach, with the enemy outside. A Muslim army has arrived and surrounded you. The siege has reversed. The victory curdles.
You now know what it means to be inside a city and still under siege. The streets of Antioch are narrow and cold. The buildings lean in strange ways. Their stones are older than anything you've seen, their windows shuttered, their doors heavy. You walk them slowly now, not as a conqueror, but as a survivor. You and your companions huddle inside this hollow city, with more ghosts than shelter. Food is no better. Supplies did not magically appear with victory. What was left behind by the defenders is quickly rationed, hoarded, or gone. The men sleep in courtyards and alleys, wrapped in cloaks that no longer warm them. The nights are not quiet. Horses cry, babies cry, men cry. It is not shameful anymore. It simply is. You are told the enemy waits outside, that they are many, that they are better armed, better supplied, and better prepared. You do not see them, but you feel them, like the pressure behind the stone, like thunder in the distance that never quite arrives. A council is held. The lords argue. The priests preach. The relic, the holy lance, is brought forth and paraded in solemn ritual. You kneel before it. You do not know if it is real. You do not ask. You no longer need certainty, only direction. In the mornings, you carry stones. You help rebuild the walls you once tried to bring down. There is irony in this, but no one mentions it. The jokes have stopped. Even sarcasm is too heavy now. One morning, you pass a chapel where candles burn despite the scarcity of wax. A monk inside is writing, copying a psalm, line by line. His hands are thin, his eyes barely open, but the letters are steady. You stand in the doorway for a moment, just watching. The quiet is profound. You do not interrupt. And then, one day, a decision is made. You will march out. The logic is unclear. Perhaps it's desperation. Perhaps it's a relic. Perhaps it's the knowledge that to remain is to wither. The war ends, but it does not vanish. Its marks are not swept away with the bodies. Its shape lingers in stone, in names, in the way the wind moves through what remains. You walk now not as a soldier, but as something else, a visitor, a pilgrim in a land once carved by faith and fire. The paths you follow are quiet. They twist along hills, through broken valleys, past fields where battle banners once stood, and now only weeds remain. You reach a fortress, crumbling but still tall, its towers holding against the slow push of time. Creeps up the walls, and for a moment you can almost hear it, the footsteps of the monks, the quiet breathing of men at prayer, the rustle of pages turning. You are alone, but you are not. These stones remember. They do not speak, but they echo. Outside, the wind carries voices, some real, some imagined. Not the cries of war, but the murmurs of daily life, a smith's hammer, the snort of a horse, the call to vespers. You close your eyes. The world is quiet now, but once it was loud with intention. In the cracks of these fortresses, in the grooves worn into stone steps, lie traces of lives that never made the scrolls. A young man standing watch, whispering a psalm to keep fear at bay. A cook stirring lentils in a blackened pot. A scribe wiping sand from his ink. Not saints, not heroes, just men enduring. And now, only you remain to remember them.
You continue walking, not toward a destination, but through what remains. The road ahead curves gently along the ridge. The stones beneath your feet are old, some cracked, some covered in moss. They were placed by hands now dust, arranged for travelers long forgotten. This was once a Crusader road, a path between fortresses, between outposts, between years. The land around you no longer shouts, it whispers. You pass olive trees growing in crooked lines, their roots wrapping around buried walls. A fig tree clings to the edge of a collapsed tower. Vines twist up the bones of what was once a gate. The wilderness has returned, not angrily, not violently. It has settled itself gently over the scars of war. And in this quiet, something becomes clear. The Crusaders did not just leave behind ruins, they left intersections of faiths, of languages, of things shared, traded, taken, remembered. In the old Crusader ports, Greek and Arabic were spoken alongside French. Recipes passed from kitchen to kitchen. Fabrics stitched in styles from both east and west. Coins bore the cross, but also crescent-like symbols. Merchants knew no borders. And yet much was broken too. This was no paradise of exchange. There was cruelty, there were massacres, there were years when the dust turned red. You do not walk here to romanticize, but to listen, to witness what remains. You step into a small village, modern now. Satellite dishes cling to roofs, motorbikes hum in the distance. But near the center, a square piece of stone marks an old foundation, worn smooth, yet still unmistakably foreign. A Crusader footprint, no longer hated, no longer praised, just there. A child runs past it, laughing. A man sells bread from a cart. Life continues. History does not ask to be remembered. It simply stays. In ruins, in recipes, in customs, in silence. You realize that most crusaders never returned home. They died here, or stayed, or vanished into the soil. Their bones lie beneath modern houses, beneath orchards and roads. No gravestones, no songs, just presence.
Even war, for all its noise, ends in quiet. The banners are lowered, the trumpets stop, the dust settles, and those who survive return, if not to where they came from, then to something resembling peace. And for the Crusaders, what they left behind was not only in stone or sword, but in the soft, slow influence of memory. Not the memory of victories or declarations, but of small things. The curve of a Romanesque arch in an eastern village. A French word tucked inside a Syrian dialect. A cross etched into a forgotten wall, almost erased by time. But memory lingers in people, too. There were those who stayed, who married, who raised children, who lived not as conquerors, but simply as neighbors. Syria or Lebanon or Israel, and pass a stone carved with a cross. They may not see it. The light might not catch it just right. It may be covered in moss, but it is there. A quiet record, a soft reminder of a time when thousands crossed the sea, driven by faith or fear or hope, and left part of themselves behind. And what remains now? The stone, the silence, the breath of wind that moves through a broken gate, the dust of the past, still shifting, still speaking, so gently you might miss it unless you sit very still and listen.
And so, as the last fires burn low and the quiet settles over the ancient stones, we step gently away from the worn roads of the Crusader night, not from the tales of glory, but from the truer story, the slow ache of armor worn too long, the weight of faith carried across deserts,
the sound of hunger echoing louder than any trumpet. These were not men of myth, they were men of flesh and silence, of blisters and prayer, of waiting and walking and wondering. I hope that as your breath deepens and your thoughts begin to wander, you carry with you a little of that old rhythm, the patience of the road, the hush of the chapel, the stillness of long-forgotten towers. Sleep well now, and until next time, may the echoes of the past keep you company in the silence.